Hello, you are watching the Pure Passion Biz podcast with Akua Hinds, and I am your host, Akua Hinds. Today, I have the joy of interviewing Anna Thellmann. Anna is based in China, and she works as the CEO and head coach of Thellmann Enterprises. She has been working in her industry for more than 8 years, and she tends to work with men and women 35 ages age 35 and older, in all different types of situations, single, if they're in a relationship, she works with them too. So that is really great to know, because I'm sure that if there's something during our interview that stands out to you, something that you feel that Anna could help you with, know that she's available to work with all different types of people. Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you. And I wanted to ask you, because you work with people who are wanting assistance with relationships and intimacy, right? And do you think that it is a common struggle in relationships to take responsibility for feelings and actions? And if so, why?
What from what I see and what I know for myself in previous years, because I learned a lot over the last couple of years, is yes, people struggle to take responsibility because it feels so much easier. It's easier for our brain to just blame someone else for I feel sad because you did this. So this is what we are drawn to because it's just easier to comprehend and to deal with it. And if we take responsibility for, oh, this is my feeling, this is something that I create, that I decide to have, that's hard because that would mean, oh my God, we need to take responsibility for everything we do. And that seems like a lot of work, particularly when you've never done that before or not having the awareness of, oh, that's what you could do. Then it seems like a big, big mountain to overcome. So it's still easier to say, no, it's his fault, it's her fault, instead of saying, no, 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 no one's fault. It's just me having the interpretation of what's going on and blaming it on the other person, even though it's me who decides how I feel, how I react, and what the outcome of that is.
That's a very interesting viewpoint. And do you think that applies to every single situation, even in a situation where maybe one person is doing their best, giving their best in a relationship, and the other person is not? Is it still um, is it still the other person's responsibility, um, because they chose to stay in that situation?
There's one thing that I learned when I started my NLP certificate, and it was the commandments. And one of them was every person is doing their best at this time with the resources they have. So, no matter what they do, what their reaction is, what their thought process is, in that moment, with all the emotions and feelings they have, they do the best they can. They might not be aware of all these processes that going on in their brain, but they do the best they can. So even if that best might hurt us or might be something that we don't agree with, and could say that, oh, they're not as engaged or involved and committed to the relationship. For them, with their experience, with their triggers, with their past, it's the best they do in this moment. That doesn't mean that they don't learn, and in a year's time they come back and say, oh my God, yeah, it wasn't amazing what I did, now I know it. But at that time, it's always the best we can do with the resources we have.
Thank you for sharing that. And I hope that some people find hope in that message, because sometimes I think some people just don't realize that the person that they're involved with might be dealing with things that that they haven't shared with anyone, and they don't know how to act properly in a relationship or how to conduct a relationship, and they just react the best they know how. And so it is good to get some insight on that psychology. And what are some suggestions that you have for women who are trying to figure out how to inspire their boyfriends and husbands to communicate more? Because um, as we all know, women do tend to be more communicative than men. So, what tips do you have for women who are trying to open up that um, conversation with their partners?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I would go back to the basics, so back to take responsibility. The big question is, how do you communicate your needs or what you want? And what I often find with my clients is we blame. We just say, oh, you don't do that, and I want you to do that. So it's a lot of blame, even though, how to say that, even though we have to bear in mind, when you want to tell your partner that they do something that you don't agree with, there is a lot of feeling behind that. There is a lot of hurt, maybe a lot of fear, not just the outer layer, but also the inner layer, the subconscious fear of being left alone, fear of being rejected, etc. And we put all that into that conversation. And what happens is we tell this other person all our thoughts, and it starts and ends a lot with, you don't do this, but you do this and you do that. And when I tell you or the listeners out there, oh, you don't listen to me, oh, you don't take the trash out, oh, you don't do this, how does it make you feel? It makes you...
Feels like an attack.
Exactly. Yeah. So what you do is you step back, you build up the wall, and it's like, oh my God, no, I don't want to talk about this. Oh, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work. So
Right.
what I teach my clients is there's a little technique to really, first of all, go back into what is it actually that you want to achieve with this conversation? What is it that you want? And when you know that, go back to your feelings. How does it make you feel when your partner, I don't know, doesn't take the trash out? Does it make you angry? Okay, that's fair. Don't try to analyze what angry means. Just say, yeah, it makes me angry. The first response of my feeling is, I'm angry. Then you can say, I feel angry when I take the trash out all the time, because, and now we have to go into the deeper level of feelings. What does it tell you as a person? Does it tell you that you feel left alone? Does it tell you that you feel like you have to organize everything, you have to be in control of everything? What does it mean to you? And then you say that, because I feel I'm left alone in this relationship with the house chores, for example. So what we do with that is we don't use the word you. We don't put any blaming. We just focus on us, on the responsibility of how we feel, what we think, and we give it out, but without judgment, without expecting, oh, my partner now understands and now he will change. Because that's their process. They have to get there by themselves in their own time. We can't expect when we come up with a problem and share it with our partner that they immediately know what to do, how to do it, when to do it. Because for them, it might be a new topic. They never heard about it before. They weren't aware of it before. And they weren't aware of what your feelings are about this topic. So give them the time to go through that and think about it. And maybe it takes a day, maybe it takes a week, maybe even a month for them to then come back and say, okay, this is what I want to do now. This is how I want to contribute. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to give them the space to, because you go there with your thoughts accumulating over weeks, and now you want a solution immediately.
Right.
Yeah. And often doesn't happen. So we need to give the person the space and ask, so this is what I feel. Do you want to talk about it now, or do you need time to think about it and see how we both can solve this.
Okay, so
So that's the hard part, to step back and just give them the space to deal with it.
so first putting the spotlight on how you as an individual feel, and then sharing that in a way from your own perspective, and then letting that sink in with your partner, and then let them come to whatever conclusion they need to come to figure out how to work together to solve that situation together. I like that. I
Yeah,
mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. And
no,
that's something that I think that we all need to remind ourselves about, that it can take time for behaviors and perceptions to change. And yes, it requires patience.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very, very helpful tip. And what are the first steps that you think need to be taken towards forgiving oneself and forgiving a partner for it's something as, I mean, it may seem petty to one person that they're angry about their partner isn't taking the garbage out, but for someone else, it can be a huge deal. Maybe it ties back to their growing up, or just how they feel about um, collaboration, or roles, or something like that. I mean, like you said, sometimes you just don't know how your words are going to impact another person. Um, and so, and some people do have that realization. They come to that realization, like you said, later on, and some don't. So, what do you suggest for forgiving oneself and forgiving the other person? What steps do you think need to be taken first?
Well, in general, I feel forgiveness is a big word. So if your partner doesn't take the trash out, what is there to forgive? Ask yourself the question, what do you think you should forgive your partner? Is it really something that goes so deep that it needs forgiveness, or is it just you being impatient and wanting a solution right now?
Mhm.
So ask yourself, where is forgiveness really needed? Is it just your expectations aren't fulfilled? Because then it has nothing to do with your partner.
Right. And do you think it's in that example, in that scenario, do you think maybe one has to come to the acceptance of the fact that, you know what, my partner just doesn't want to take the trash out, so I guess it'll be me who takes the trash out, right? Instead of expecting them to, or asking them to, or maybe we can compromise and we can both take turns doing it. Do you think it's just a part of, the forgiveness cycle is acceptance of the fact that this is what happened, and this is the way it is, and this is the way we both see this?
I think compromise is a good thing, depending on, are you both happy with it? There is, of course, like, it's not a straight line, because sometimes we say, oh, we don't want this. I don't want to take the trash out. But maybe when we compromise on, yeah, I'm willing to take it out every other week, that is stretching it and saying, I'm still okay with that. So being open to, where can we go from here? And how you describe it, it's always from our perspective. What do we want?
Right.
And that's okay. That's okay if you want that.
Mhm.
But it's two, in this relationship, what does your partner want? And maybe you talk to them and then they say, oh, I love to do the dishes. You say, I never knew this. Oh my God, of course, here are the dishes. Yeah, it's like, your expectations are great, but bear in mind that your partner has these expectations as well.
Right.
And ideally, you both drop them and come together neutrally and open and discuss, okay, what is it that you like to do? What are you willing to do? What is it that I'm willing to do? So how can we share this? And I remember my partner, he expected me to iron his shirts. And I was like, I'm not ironing any shirt.
So just wondering, Anna, I mean, why did he have that expectation? Is that because his previous partner ironed his shirts? or
Previous
that's just what
partner,
you wanted?
mother, everyone previously ironed his shirt. So he had just this idea, now I'm here, I'm doing the same. And for me, it was like, no, not doing that. And we had a fight about it. When I told him I don't do this, he needed time to process my rejection towards his expectations. And there was a lot of blame from his side, me not supporting him. And that's the hard bit then for you to stand strong and say that this is what I want to do, because I know if I stand on that ironing board, I will hate every minute of it. I will feel disappointed in myself. I will feel that I didn't stand tall to my boundaries. I feel like I'm doing this for him, but not for me. And I will shame and blame myself. And that's not worth to me doing it. So we didn't talk for 3 days.
Wow.
And eventually, yeah, we came together again. And I said to him, this is why, because I don't want to feel that way. It's not worth it to me. And I said, I'm happy to take your stuff to the laundry and get them ironed there. I'm happy to do that for you every time. But I'm not willing to iron it myself. I'm not willing to do that. And he was like, okay, I'm used to different, but this is okay for me. I can live with that. And this shows you take responsibility for what you want. You give them the time to dwell on it, to think about it, to see what is it actually that I want. And then you come together. And when we come back to forgiveness, there in this situation, I'd say there's nothing to forgive, because he just had an expectation that he didn't communicate to me before, and I didn't communicate my resistance towards it before. So there was nothing to forgive. It was just two people having their own minds, having their own ideas about how it should work. And we
Right.
came together and it both clashed, and we had an argument, didn't talk for a couple of days. But now we're good. We haven't talked about it for years. And all is fine. So forgiveness, I find we use that word so easily, and mostly it's because we feel hurt about something that person did. And that comes back to taking responsibility for your own feelings.
Okay.
So if that person hits you, yeah, slap in the face, different story. So that's a different story. That's something where you say, okay, where's the door? I'm leaving.
Right.
And then comes forgiveness and forgiving yourself for not seeing the red flags, seeing the signs, putting all that trust in the person and being disappointed. That then where it comes to, how do I forgive myself? Because now I don't trust anymore. I lost the trust in that person, maybe in future partners, but also in myself, because I didn't see it.
Well, that's very powerful, because I think a lot of people who are in situations where they're being mistreated, they they may not even know what signs to look for. Maybe they were in previous relationships, or they grew up seeing their loved ones in relationships that looked a lot like the relationship that they're in, the dysfunctional one. And so they don't know how to choose. They don't know how to find someone who doesn't continue with that pattern, right? And so, yes, very important to know what is worth not speaking about, and what is worth getting up and walking out about, and what is worth sitting down and coming to an understanding about. Acceptance. I love that. But thank you so much for sharing that example about, just these expectations, right, that we have and that the other person has. And we have to just stand firm. Sometimes we have to stand firm, and other times we need to see their point of view, and maybe we do still stand firm, but um, we also make it clear that, you know what, if I'm not going to be able to do this, maybe I can suggest this. That's very nice. It's a very beautiful example, actually. Thank you for sharing about that. And lastly, you will be having an event later on this month, and this is going to be a LinkedIn event. Um, what are some top two topics that you feel that men and women are hungry to learn more about in general, men and women all over the world, that they want to discuss together as a global community? What are two topics or common themes that you think are very just that most people want to discuss? And also, will these topics be explored during your live LinkedIn event later on this month?
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, so we have three main topics. The first one is to rebuild the foundation of your relationship. The second one is healthy relationship dynamics. Like you said, sometimes people don't know what is a healthy relationship dynamic because they just maybe never seen it. And the third point is finding confidence in who you are. And I think all of those are going together, they interact with each other. Because when you know your worth, and I don't mean you are selfish or you're just going through the world with your eyes shut and I'm the most important person. That's not what I mean. But just knowing that I deserve love. I don't have to do anything to be loved. If you know that, your relationship dynamics will be different. As if you go into a relationship and you believe that you have to do something to be loved. Because from my experience with my clients, when we have that idea that I need to do something to get love back, then we look for these people who treat us a certain way and we accept so much bad behavior and treatment from these people because we're so afraid that we're not loved, that they will leave us, that we are alone, that we'll never find someone.
Right.
Yeah. But when you think back and believe that I am worth being loved, start with yourself, love yourself first, because you're the only person you spend all your time with for the rest of your life. And why not make that experience a beautiful one? And accepting who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and knowing that you don't need to do anything to be loved. You are love yourself.
That's very powerful. I mean, I've often said to people um, who I chat with, whether they're asking me about, my businesses where I do own dating sites and I have a business selling relationship enhancement products. I often say you are the common denominator in all of the relationships you're in. And so you have to be aware that there's the one common denominator is you. So you have to figure out if you see relationship patterns that are continuing and going on from one different partner to another, and you see the same type of patterns and you don't like it, there's something that you need to change, something that you need to do because you're the one common denominator. And I think too that there are many people who have not been taught that about themselves, about love in general, that there's nothing that we have to do, that we are love, and that we need to figure out. And I also think that there are people who do not realize it, that it's their responsibility to find somebody who is going to help them develop the appropriate type of relationship for them, right? First, we need to develop our relationship with ourselves, right? But we also need to find an appropriate individual. And I love it. I love that, these are topics that are going to be explored later on in your event later this month. That's going to be exciting. And thank you so much for appearing on the podcast, Anna. So this is a LinkedIn event, and that's going to be taking place in a few weeks. You can contact Anna through her social media. I'm going to be posting those links in the description box. You can also contact her directly at annathellmann.com. Thank you very much for watching the Pure Passion Biz podcast. And Anna, thank you so much for appearing today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.